everyone, I'm Reverend Howard.
And hello everyone, I'm Reverend Andrew, and we're here today to talk to you about harvest, because during October a lot of the churches that we look after have been celebrating harvest festivals, where we give thanks for the fruit of the earth, the successful collecting in of the harvest, and the resources that we enjoy and share.
That's right, with all those crops, fruits and vegetables, the question is, where do they come from? How do they grow? Well, Christians believe that God made the world and everything in it, and God saw that it was good. That tells us that God has given us everything we need to feed us and to take care of ourselves. And God asks that we take responsibility in looking after the world. And the more we found out about how the world works, we found there's a deep order to creation. Scientists and people of faith are talking about that and comparing notes. So harvest time is a really good opportunity to think about the world, everything in it, where it comes from, and our responsibility towards it. Now, I said about scientists and people of faith. Well, Andrew here is a scientist and a vicar.
Yes, and I've got 3 things I would like to say about looking after the planet today. And you might think that they are all going to sound quite obvious, but just because they're obvious doesn't mean they're not important, because they're very important. And the first of these is represented by this watering can. Now, you could fit about enough water into this can to water maybe 1 flower bed in your garden at home. However, you need, of course, a lot more water than that to sustain agriculture across our planet. And we must remember that there are a lot of different uses for water. We obviously rely on it for drinking it. We wash ourselves and other things in it. We need it for the plants, the animals, and also in the manufacturing industry to make things. And that means that particularly as the population of our planet grows, there is an increasing demand for water, and it's increasingly important that we manage the flow of water in the right way to make sure that the right amount, particularly of clean water, ends up in the right place at the right time. We must also think about what is involved in getting the food that we enjoy from the farms where it's produced to the supermarket shelves where, like this tin, we buy it. And that means that we need to remember all of the people and planning that are involved in processing, packaging, transporting and distributing the food. And that also involves thinking about whether that food is being distributed fairly across the face of the entire planet. Now, talking of the face of the planet, this globe here on the table represents, of course, the Earth. And as it turns very slowly, you'll be able to see that a large amount of the Earth's surface is covered in water. It's reckoned that about 3/4 of the surface of the Earth is covered in water, mainly, of course, the oceans. And that means that only 1/4 of the planet is actually dry land. And only a small proportion of that land will be able to be used for farming, because agriculture requires that the soil has the right balance of nutrients in it for the crops to grow, and that's not going to be true everywhere that there is dry land. And again, as the population of our planet rises, there is also a lot more competition for land use and a lot more pressure for building more things that might interfere with agricultural land. And therefore protecting how we use the land for the future is also a very important thing that we need to be thinking about.
That's right, because in Bible times land was thought to be so important you could not buy and sell it. It was just kept by some people who looked after the land and grew the crops in it. So our land and our response to it is really important. Take these 2 apples. They look okay on the outside? They look all right on the outside. Let's see what they're like inside. Oh, that one's all right, isn't it? That one's
Looks
all
good
right,
to me.
Andrew. Let's look at this one. here. Do you want that in your lunch, Andrew?
I think I'll pass. Thank you, Howard.
I think so. You see, the question is, when we say these things are important, are we just saying it, or do we really believe it deep inside? Are we taking our responsibility to look after God's world really seriously, deep inside? It's what we might call the harvest of our lives. Is it a good harvest or not? Well, let's hope it's a good harvest.
Yes, and one of the things that we must remember about the harvest of our lives is that we can measure the degree to which it's a good harvest partly by how we attend to the things I mentioned, like the flow and distribution of water, of food, and the protection of land, in order to make sure that our harvests for the future are sustainable. And part of the way that we make sure that they are is looking after God's creation properly. So thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.